when we are, if you are not talking, can you please put yourself on mute? I'm going to mute. Yeah. So what we saw was, one thing is understanding of the safe. You go to a 2-day class, I mean, or any other classes, right? I mean, you get a theoretical knowledge. Yes, definitely yes. But at the same time, there are more questions unanswered in those classes for you. Like, what does an RTE do? What does a Scrum Master even do in a safe environment? So that's where we felt there is a need to kind of give an impart or knowledge around what are these roles specifically doing. We looked at three roles mostly. One is, again, two roles and one thought process, so to say. One of them was a lead portfolio manager, which we talked last week. And we're going to talk about RTE today. And 2 days later, on 2nd of November, we have a talk on successful DevOps implementation. Again, using SAFe as a framework. How are we going to do that one? Okay, with that, a little bit of introduction about me. Ashwini Kalkura is my name. I'm an SPCT candidate, which is the highest level of certification that SAFe has. I'm working towards my SPCT badge, so to say. I work for a gold partner called Cyberbahn, and in Dubai region, uh, we have an understanding and we have a partnership with Learning Initiative to run specialized courses and also drive the message of SAFe in this region, right? We want to use our synergies there. That's a little bit about why these webinars have been envisioned. A little bit more about me. Trained over 1,800 people on SAFe. Mostly all of the SAFe trainings, except for SAFe ASE, which is about the software engineers. Except for that course, I have taught all the SAFe courses. I'm a voracious reader. This is something I'm very proud of myself. I try to read one book per week. That's a pace with which I try to finish the books, with all the scheduling of consulting, training going on in parallel, right? Okay, what are we going to talk today? We will be talking about three things. One is roles and responsibilities of an RT or an agile release train. Hope, I mean, most of you who have joined has a basic understanding of SAFe. If not, release train is nothing but a team of teams. When a team of teams have to work together to deliver a value to the customer, we call them as a train. The analogy is, you have a engine in the train and there are multiple coaches, and the train always goes on a track. So you have that common vision and a goal and the roadmap. That's your track. There is an engine which drives you. Then you, all the coaches or all the um, coaches of the train, they go together station to station. That's an analogy that we have. And we will also look at what makes an RT as a successful one in planning and execution. What are those behaviors? What are those aspects we are looking at it? And last part, some of the training and opportunities for collaboration. Again, this is from Learning Initiative and Cyberbahn. What are those trainings available for you? What are the opportunities for collaboration available for you? Because we're going to look at what is the RT needs to do. It is highly impractical that you are going to get all those experiences in one organization. Trust me, I mean, even if you have worked as an RTE for a year or so, you are not going to get that the whole gamut of things an RTE has to do. Maybe we can help you to get onto that journey faster, or we can collaborate with you to kind of involve you into multiple things so that, I mean, we become better at it. Roles and responsibilities. My son likes Avengers, so I put this metaphor, so to say. Um, it's it's like a superhero job. Again, when you talk about an RT, it's like a superhero job. Or uh, again, the guys and the ladies and the gents on the team, who is an RT, he or she, they have to work like a superhero. But at least Avengers have that backup, right? So I mean, if you see, there are multiple people that you see here, they have a backup. RTA is one per train. by definition of the scaled agile, RT is one person per the train. So that's a kind of a what do you say, the role that is talked about in scaled agile for an RT. And in fact, if I take from, I'm not going to read all of them, in fact. So, but if I just go to scaledagile framework.com and see what are the roles and responsibilities of an RT, I just copy pasted everything. And in fact, I cut a lot of things in between, saying that, okay, maybe this is something an RT will not do to start with. So even after that, this looks like this. Uh, they they are the facilitators for your planning. They are the ones, who are going to keep everything intact during the execution. They are going to make sure that the decision makers are aligned. They are the ones, who are working with the lean portfolio managers for budgeting and the guardrail options, demos, the team demos, the system demos, the solution demos. They are going to help the teams to move towards the direction of relentless improvement, so to say, right? And over a period of time, they may not be able to do everything. That's where, they will also start with communities of practices. How can scrum masters become better? How can product owners become better, right? So they are going to look at, and also wherever necessary, they are going to coach leaders, teams, and scrum masters. In fact, everyone on the train. It's like head of a state, so to say, right? But if you are a head of a state, you also have powers, right? And what any agile methodology tells us, a coach and a facilitator, they are a responsibility without the authority. So you have to lead the team without that authority being there. Authority lies maybe with someone else. You have to be perfectly okay with what we call as that servant leadership style. You have to be a better servant to become a better leader, right? So that's a thought process that we have. Anything in this list that interests you? We can talk a little bit more about that. I don't want to make it as a one-way flow.
No, this is good. Like you're going in a good direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when I say built-in quality practices, so what kind of quality practices? It's like testing, test pyramid, those kind of activities, and
Yeah, mostly it is inspired by extreme programming, your pair programming, your test-driven development, and also maybe BDD. And when you talk about hardware, it's about system integrations. It's about what we call as a model-based solution engineering, right? So when you um, talk about your requirement in terms of pictures and drawings, how can I help the team to become better in those areas? Again, as an RT, you are not going to maybe code and test and develop those CI/CD pipelines, but how do I move continuously towards that thought process of quality should be built in? Again, that goes with the Deming's teaching. What he said is, if you are inspecting for quality, it's a disaster, because product is already there. You are inspecting for quality. You can't change anything there. You are going to be mostly doing something in retrospective, or doing something as a reactive thing, right? And what we want an RTE to be is a proactive person who is going to build the quality in, or help the people understand what's the importance of building that quality in, so that when we build something, it's with the highest quality that is needed for us. Any other thoughts?
thank you.
And what do you think? What kind of people will be good fit for this kind of a role as an RTE? If you see the person on the right, maybe what comes to your mind?
Anyone who knows the complete process and who the customers,
Hmm.
so what customer need from the project.
Yeah. Any
Somebody who can
I think
multitask.
Ashwini, we're really looking at someone that's multi-skilled, strategic,
Right.
understands, organizational strategy to connect with the senior leaders, but also brings a multitude of hybrid skills, which I think people are losing focus on. As a senior Scrum Master, you still need to bring the project management competencies that you learn in a PMP, because these are the skills combined.
Yeah.
that allow you to operate in that role, which is moving
Yeah.
in 100 different directions.
Yeah.
So I think it's a multitude of leadership, it's technical agility, it's project management competency, it's the emotional intelligence, the future foresight, planning skills. So it's literally, I would almost say that this becomes that mini CEO, COO of that organization.
And in fact, I think, I mean, just before everybody was joining, Shahid was, I mean, talking about the salaries for an RTE. But at the same time, what I'm also seeing, even in India, is even if you give at that salary, the right kind of people are not available, right? When we talk about multitude of skills of, I need to know financials, I need to know the budgeting thought process, I need to know contracts, I need to know the technical agility part of it, I need to know the overall Scrum, Agile, and then Lean, and then safe processes. At the same time, I have to be a people person, right? So because you don't have an authority, you have to nudge people based on your own behaviors, your own purpose motive that you have, right? So that's the kind of people that we are looking at when we talk about an RTE. And
Ashwini, one quick analogy about from my perspective is I see an RT more like from a train perspective, one who sits in the engine,
yeah,
who gives the direction towards the entire train, but at
yeah,
the same time has the skills to connect the coaches, links between the coaches, and facilitates the momentum on the track.
exactly. I mean, while there is a track laid out, uh, uh, the driver or the pilot, I mean, whoever it is, right? So you can't sleep, right? So you have to keep the train on track, and you have milestones to reach, right? So each milestone is, I mean, very, very critical. Maybe, I mean, you have to meet on the dot. That's what the customer expects. That's a nice analogy. Let's move to the next thought. Who is a successful RTE, right? So again, I have also taken this from Skilled Agile website. You have to move from a place A to place B, from where to where, right? So you are no more coordinating team activities, but you are coaching the teams to collaborate. Coaching is a very tough word, and I mean tough thing as well, because you're not going to give answers, but at the same time you are trying to move the people in the right direction by asking them powerful questions. I mean, by making sure that you have empathy for their situation and their emotional needs and so on and so forth. And from deadlines, I mean, you are moving to objectives. What is the value that I'm going to give? Because customer is not going to end of the day worry about development, worry about testing, worry about even automation. They worry about, I have some problem statements. Who is going to solve my problem statement? How will I get my problem statement solved? And as we see in the picture on the right, when we are moving in these directions, there are always missing pieces, right? So somebody is missing and floating around somewhere. As an RT, I'm in the center, but at the same time, somehow I have to find a way to get these people connected to the overall value and the vision of the train as well. And also we are talking about not just the outputs, we are talking about outcomes. It's also not about specific outcomes, but rather around how do I improve the overall performance of the train, right? It's about not just saying, okay, I'll deliver you feature A, but rather it's about, if I don't deliver feature A, what is going to happen? Or if I can't deliver feature A, what is the next best item that I can do, right? And you don't know the answer. With all these things in place, you definitely don't know the answer, and you are asking the teams for the right answers. This is where your powerful questioning comes in, right? And also you have to make them self-organized. Over a period of time, it is highly impractical for one person to do all the things. So how do I make the teams like myself? I create more leaders. As an RTE, again, I tell about this one as a Scrum Master as well. How do you know that a Scrum Master as or an RT is no more needed for the team or the train? What's your viewpoint? Or how do you say that they are successful? I mean, for me, it is when the team doesn't need a Scrum Master or the train doesn't need an RTE, they have become, I mean, very, very successful. They have made the team to self-organize. And they're not fixing the problem, rather, I mean, they're helping others to fix those problems. Any thoughts on what will help us to move from this from behavior to behavior? I mean, what are those thoughts required in us, or what are those education required for us?
I would say that trust between the team members would be one quality that especially now over the last few decades, the way how it is, the mindset is more like you're being given work, you do it.
Yeah.
That has to culturally change, and it should become more like self responsibility or accountability rather, not
Hmm.
even responsibility, it's the accountability,
Yeah.
and you self pick things that will help the entire organization to grow.
Sure.
I would add one point, which is the team empowerment.
Yeah.
Because if you empower team members and delegate responsibilities to them, and then asking them to do something, to manage something at their own, uh, it would give them energy and self accountability.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where typically we talk about the intrinsic motivation, right? And what motivates people. Again, money is a motivator, definitely yes, but it's what we call as a hygiene factor, right? So after we are paying people enough, what motivates them? It's typically what we call as autonomy, or the freedom of choice for people, mastery. Each one wants to become master in their own field, and the purpose motive. So you need to have that purpose motive. So RTs have to build that purpose motive. And when we talk about trust, it doesn't get built overnight. You can't say, trust me, please. Right. So how do I make sure that I'm trustworthy? I have to be predictable. I have to be consistently predictable. I have to be consistently predictable in my behaviors. I have to consistently predictable in my deliveries. I have to be consistently predictable in articulation as well, right? So only when you have those skills of being very consistent, being very predictable, then people will trust you. People will follow you. Follow the leader is, I mean, people are not going to follow you for just because, I mean, you have a position of hierarchy, or in a better position. Rather, I mean, it is about, um, is that person instilling confidence in me? Is that person instilling a purpose in me? So that's very, very important and a key role for an RTE. And trust me, I struggle to play RTE role. I mean, it's not very easy. Even in the first organization that I have played, I'll tell you, the first PI I would look at. I mean, if I look at myself a few years back when I played that role, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed about myself, right? So you become better over a period of time with this specific role. And also, it's I mean, even when I get into as a consultant in a new organization, trust me, it is again going to be a few weeks of effort for me to really understand what is happening there, and what are the right things and right strategies that I need to put. So it's a learnable skill, definitely, but at the same time, it's a hard work as well. It's not so easy that you just uh, get into that role. So how do I become a complete RTE? So I have a quick thought process. I have put it as a um, 6-step process. Uh, Maybe in a training, RTE training. Again, I mean, RTE training, SAFE also tells that, I mean, only if you have a little bit of a safe experience, then attend the RTE training, because we are not going to talk about what is safe. We expect people to be knowing already a little bit about safe. It's an advanced course, 3 days. User groups, maybe, I mean, what we are doing today, right? So these user groups are powerful and very, very helpful. And trust me, we are always we don't have to learn from our own mistakes. I mean, we learn from others mistakes also, or we learn from others successes also, right? So definitely a user groups will definitely help us. So follow us. I mean, I'm shamelessly asking, Learning Initiative and Cyberbahn, follow us. We do put nuggets. I mean, we do kind of ask people for help. I mean, we do kind of create these events. Webinars are and meetups are part of it. But at the same time, there is also a platform for us to converse, right? So all holds but, I mean, we can always have some conversations around what is working for me, what are the better ways of doing it, and so on and so forth. Safe website has a wealth of knowledge around RTE and roles and responsibilities, and also if you are a certified safe professional, you get access to community platform with lot of videos there. Last but not the least, which interests me, and I mean, which is my passion as well, books and blogs. Follow the authors, follow the blogs, follow those, I mean, books. That will kind of, I mean, give you a thought around what is this whole thing about. In fact, one book that you could start with is servant leadership, right? So start with that, and maybe then get on to some of the safe books, specifically from Dean and others. Um, that's an entirely different, I mean, dimension and a world for me. In fact, you get so kind of get into that groove that you feel I have to do certain things differently. I mean, what I have been doing, yes, I mean, it has helped me, but I'll also have to change the way that I'm working from today to tomorrow. Otherwise, in the current world, I mean, I'm not going to survive, right? So definitely, I mean, books change the way you think. There are very good authors who kind of put out blogs around RTs, I mean, blogs around the Scaled Agile framework. Again, scaledagileFramework.com is a good place to start there. I would say the mix and match of all these six things will help us to become better collaborators, better RTs as well. Okay, with that said, my talk is over. Any thoughts, any comments, anything further that we want to discuss here?
I think, Ashwini, the key here really, if, obviously we wanted to just introduce what the RTE role is, what their responsibility is really understand some of the challenges we could probably touch on here, because you were talking about something really key. And what I feel kind of going a little bit against the grain is, as you first become an RTE and you can foresee that people are doing something wrong, a good and a successful RTE will to some extent fail, because if we don't fail, we don't learn. And if we don't learn, we can't foresee other problems. I mean, what are your thoughts on that as an RTE, managing the risk between a catastrophic failure or maybe an RTE just letting the first PI plan fail because we don't want to keep directing people and telling them what to do?
Trust me, I have become police sometime. So as an RT, I have become police sometime, right? So end of the day, Shahi, the idea is while we say people have to do the things, I mean, I give this analogy. If somebody is drowning in the water, I mean, you are not going to coach them how to swim. Rather, I mean, you save them first, right? And also, I mean, make sure that, I mean, you kind of put that thought of, if you fail, I mean, you will drown and you are going to lose your life. I mean, lose your life would mean that train will go off track and you're going to collide somewhere else, right? So I would save, but at the same time, I would not save that person twice, right? So the next time, the next day morning, I'm going to take him to a swimming pool and teach him swimming. So, I mean, I would go with that approach. First PI is going to be very, very critical. Yes, I mean, there would be chaos. There would be a little bit of direction, I mean, mismatch in the direction. But if you don't make it successful, people will feel that this is another event, I mean, which is just happening for the sake of it. And what does it mean for an RTE? For the first PI, trust me, it is a 2-3 months of preparation, nothing less than that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ashwini. Does anybody have any questions around this role? Because if not, I've got another key point that I'd like to kind of get Ashwini to discuss on. Anybody have any questions?
I do. Like, I want
Yeah.
to, I have a question regarding like, how do you organize your, of course, like, since as an RTE, you must be organizing your work for all the initiatives and for all the dependencies. So, what would be the best way to organize and follow, or what strategies you have been using that has been successful that you can share? That would be great.
Yeah. So at an extreme, as an RT, I should always be free. Again, I'm I'm contradicting myself, right? I
Right.
should always be free because uh, you need to give your time to the highest priority item that is burning at this point in time. What does it mean? So what that would mean is, I mean, while I'm helping Scrum Masters, I'm not going to be their buddy, right? I mean, or I'm not going to be the second Scrum Master for the team. That's something that the Scrum Master should hold. So this is where I said, I mean, the word policing. Uh, with the Scrum Masters, I'll be a little stricter because for my success as an RTE depends on the success of RTE plus the Scrum Master community. It is not a word alone. One thing that could help me is list out all the activities that I do, right? And maybe allocate some percentage of time for each of them, saying that, okay, this is where I need to concentrate 10% of my time because of this reason. This is something I need to delegate. This is something I should not be, I mean, worrying too much, right? So again, delegate, direct, and do it yourself. I mean, those are the three things that I would do. So either delegate, either direct people to do it, or I mean, do it yourself. So you have to pick and choose or the cherry pick those things, I mean, which you want to do it. Because trust me, 8 hours in a day is not going to be sufficient if you try to do all things by yourself. And
Thanks, Ashwini.
another framework that has helped me is urgent and important, right? And again, one of the U.S. President Eisenhower put this one as urgent and important. What is urgent and what is important? I will do it. What is urgent but not important? I will ask someone else to do it, right? What is not urgent, what is not important, we will not even never do it. And what is important and but not urgent, I will plan for it, right? So I mean, use that framework as well. And another thing to note is, if something is urgent, it is important for someone else. If it is urgent for you, it means it is important for someone else. Maybe you have to think about that. Should I be doing it, or should I be not doing it?
Thanks, Ashwini. I think Dharmesh, did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So, a couple of years back, I used to play Scrum of Scrums. I used to facilitate large solutions, large programs,
Yeah.
and the portfolio as well. So I used to have a lot of Scrum of Scrum meetings. Now, from that mindset, of course, with the same safe construct of the PI and other things, what are the differential things that I will have to look at from from a daily perspective as well as the overall roles and responsibilities perspective?
Yeah. So from a daily perspective, I mean, few things that I will look from a program is, one is running an effective Scrum of Scrum and the PO sync meetings. Again, I should not become a bottleneck there, but rather I'm empowering people to talk openly and put forward their thoughts. And mostly, I would look at as in Scrum of Scrum as not the current impediments alone, but rather what could be something that might stop our train, right? What could stop our train in few more days, right? So I want to look Scrum Masters from that perspective. So the Scrum Masters should be empowered and should be taught to look further, not just look at, okay, today this is an impediment. Yes, that is important. We need to solve, but also can I make them think about what could be the future hold for them, right? So that's one thing very, very important. Another thing I look at is system demos and integrated demos where the real feedback is coming up, because end of the day, I mean, you could use whatever process is not going to help anyone, right? So process is an enabler. Process anyway is an enabler. What helps you is the real customers real feedback. So can I articulate well in the system demos and get the real feedback from our customers and start working on that? While safe says inspect and adopt and do it once in a PI, I would not hesitate to do a mid PI retrospective with my Scrum Masters. How are we doing? What could have we done better next time? What we want to avoid, right? So I would look at those roadblockers and impediments. And trust me, I would spend most of my time into what could be the future impediments and how do I solve them. Because the current impediments, your scrum master should be enabled and empowered enough to talk to anyone in the organization, right? So as an RT, you should not become a bottleneck there.
Nice points. Thanks, Ashwini.
Again,
Thanks. Good question, Ramesh. Ashwini, good point there. I think the key here, guys, is look at this as a competency, or what are the competencies that are needed. I think one of the challenges that we're seeing as a training partner with Scaled Agile and other various vendors is that people keep going after Agile technical training. Now, once you've got the Scrum, and I think as Ashwini pointed out quite clearly, the Scrum Masters are doing their job. The product owners are doing their job. So as someone that wants to advance, you should maybe be doing a quick self-check on yourself and saying, well, where do my leadership skills sit? Where do my soft skills sit? Where does my facilitation skills sit? Because facilitation in itself is something that we've seen a lot of Agile coaches just don't know how to do. They almost become evangelists for Agile, and we take the book around and smack people over the head because they're not doing Scrum the way we want it done, because the book says. The ultimate goal really that you need to understand in anything and in anything in life is delivering business outcomes. So one of the things that I would say for people that have come into this as Agile guys is don't rule off project management. Don't rule off leadership skills, and build a holistic set of skills. Obviously, a great starting point here is to go into an RTE course, which we do have coming up. Do you know the dates, Patrick, for the upcoming RTE, or Ashwini?
Wait a minute, I think it's December 8th or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get them dates, or Patrick, if you can drop the dates in the chat. Now, what we are seeing more and more, especially in the Middle East, as companies have looked towards embracing Scaled Agile as a framework of choice, what we are now starting to see is a big gap appearing where there hasn't been this release train engineer training available in the region. And we're finding a lot of people don't have the core structure that's needed around. So, I mean, if you guys are interested, the beauty of taking this training in the Middle East is you don't pay 20% VAT. So it's substantially cheaper than the, buying this in Europe or UK or even the US. And right now we are running promotions because these are the key skills as you look to drive your digital future. This is what's going to help you guys establish yourselves as people that have got the right skills and the right kind of certifications. And that's where we, a learning initiative, have partnered with Ashwini and Cyberbahn to bring some of these more advanced topics to the region. I see, Patrick, did you put the, all right, yep. So we got 16th to 18th of November, and we've got 7th to 9th of December. And these two course dates are on promo offers as we bring these live to the region. So anybody have any other questions? I've done my shameless plug, Ashwini.
Yeah.
Shahid.
Hey, Tariq.
Thank you very much for such an interesting seminar. I really appreciate you learning initiatives support and really initiatives here and there, and spreading on good knowledge and experience in the region. Thanks, Jahid, and thanks for learning initiative.
Thanks, Tariq. Appreciate your support as always.
Thank you, Shahid, for arranging this. This is a great initiative. And this is Rakesh. So I have a question to Ashwini. So Ashwini, right now, I want to say there is a problem. There is a team A and there is a team B, and team A is pretty much good with their work. Team B is pretty much good their work. They take ownership on their individual teams. Like team A people will take on their, team B people are taking their. So we implemented like Scrum of Scrums. We call as interfaces meeting because both are independent on each other. Maybe the name is different, but we call it as interfaces meeting.
Yeah.
So they used to team A and team B used to come to the interface meeting. They agree on some approach, but team A does not like team B's approach. Team B does not like team A's approach.
Okay.
And which incidentally or accidentally, unfortunately, leads to failures at the end.
Sure.
But in between, we are taking few measures to test it before going there. So we figured it out few problems. So we used to run chase between the team B and team A to figure it out and to make sure those issues will not occur in production.
Sure.
However, we are like team C. Team C does not have team B or team A. We are like team C, chasing team A's and team B work, testing both the integrations and making sure there is no issues between them, and we are coming over there. How to make sure team A and team B are having healthier conversations both together.
Okay.
Without having the support of team C, they should be leading together and making the product to production.
Sure.
Without any help.
Yeah. One thing I can technically think about is mob programming, right? So whatever are those critical components, I mean, don't allow only team A or only team B to work. Maybe, I mean, take a mix of few people from team A and team B, let them code together. I mean, putting on like sharing their screens and I mean, coding together and testing out together, right? Make it as a hackathon, right? Rather than discussing about it, make it as a hackathon. And if it is a story of say 2 days, don't do everything. Test each logic one by one, and only when one time a team A might be right, I mean another time team B might be right. I mean it's perfectly okay, right? So maybe I mean bring about that healthy competition if that works.
Yeah, but the problem is one team A is kind of vendor team and team B is like internal in-house team. That makes the problem.
That's one problem. Nobody has a solution. The moment you call someone as a vendor, someone as myself.
Ashwini, do you know what I would do there? I'd bring in one of us. Bring in Shite. He'll sort that out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, in one of the organizations that I worked as a consultant, after some time, we coaches said to the management, don't stop calling anyone vendors and don't stop calling anyone resources, because this is a resource. Mobile phone is a resource. People are not resources, right? People have life. People have, I mean, they breathe. They have, I mean, they have emotions. They have intelligence, right? So don't call them resources. So I think, I mean, changing that, again, I'm giving a far too extreme suggestion, but giving that flip in the way we think about vendor versus ourselves, right? So that's going to help us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. And again, I mean, luckily as an external consultant, I have that, what do you say, freedom to tell what I want many a times. Internally, I mean, you might find it a little struggleful to talk about that problem in the room, right?
Yeah, I just think to add to that, Ashwini, I think the key again is coming back to what is the outcome? What is the result? Forget what the book tells you. Because if you follow the book verbatim, the book doesn't understand your culture. The book doesn't understand the current mindset that you are coming from. The book is almost assuming that you have already adopted the mindset because you've adopted the values, you've adopted the principles. And I'll never forget this, Ashwini, from Ramesh on the last implementing SAFE. You know, you've got to think of yourself as a fictitious CEO. What is it that your company should look like? And what is it the result that you're actually looking to get? And then within that, you will start finding the system of changes that you need to make. Don't take this like a hammer. You know, Scaled Agile is a framework. It is a toolbox. We identify what the problem is, and we use whatever we need to use to fix that particular problem. And one of the toolkits that I think is not being used well enough is design thinking. Yeah. So if we start applying design thinking across every internal problem, because we are our own customer, let's stop treating customers as purely external. So if I was coming into your organization, I don't know your organization, but the first thing I want to do is let me bring out my design thinking toolkit. Let us try and understand what is the real problem here, and then we will converge and diverge and come up with, various options. Maybe we'll look at a little bit more in-depth inspect and adapt here, because we're already into the program increments. But the idea is go back to that problem-solving culture and go back to the design thinking tool and apply that over the problem. And then you never know, you may see perspectives that weren't available because it was a battle between two teams before. So I'd definitely give that as a big advice to anything you're about to do. As time consuming as it is, you'll actually see that you'll get to the end result faster rather than going through so many iterations of battling. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Ashwini, in terms of the design thinking aspects of what Scaled Agile talks about?
Yeah. Again, I would go with this Einstein's quote. If I have 1 hour to solve a problem, if I have 1 hour to kind of solve a problem and my life depends on it, first 55 minutes I will use it to understand the problem, right? Most of the time when we jump into conclusions and we jump into solutioning mode, right? So design thinking helps you to streamline your thinking process itself into understanding the problem first, then only designing the right solution for the right customer.
I also have like a question. Like, do you guys maintain your retrospects like in individual team? Do you guys, because that's a reflection of how your teams are working. You can pretty much look at, and there will be, if you're not using your retrospect very creatively, you will not be able to find out issues.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like the retrospect has to be like, oh, what works for, so it should be for everyone. You have to be very creative in your retrospect and keep a note of it. Like you go back to all your like 3-4 retrospect, like it will tell you a story where the issues are, and that's where you have to really work on improving. Because I had this.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you there. I'll tell you
No.
something about retrospectives. The second sin that you can have on an agile team is not having a retrospective. The first sin is having that one and not taking action on it.
Exactly, right. That's what I was like saying. Like, if there is an issue with team A and B, what is like Scrum Master doing? Because that's the job of a Scrum Master. We get very creative in our retrospectives, and we try to. So, like just like how we expect from teams some commitment that they are doing, and when the some outcomes are there in our retros, which is needed to be addressed, and if you're not doing it, then it's gonna be in the same situation. You're not like really helping them. So when they do bring up something, you do try to address it. And the thing that I usually do is whenever I do join like new, because I'm a consultant too, I like to go and look at people's their velocity had been, that tells your stories, and then also their retrospectives if they have been, because that gives you a little bit of summary of where the team has been standing and where they are struggling, their areas, and how you can improve upon, right? So that's a beginning of it. And I had the same situation in one of like a project that I did, last project. This team was working on one of the initiative for like almost 3 years, and which is like not there's definitely issues that nobody addressed it. So what we did is like we stopped calling us as like that was my first thing. Like we do preach also status quo, you have to get out of it. So what we did is like we brought together those two team sitting, especially when there is like the requirement gathering is happening and feasibility is like taken into consideration. So they all are involved. You have to like start from there, and then work on like following up on dependencies, like trying to help team in when it comes to dependencies. And I think that solves a lot of issues, lot of conversation. Like definitely they should be able to come to you right away. I think as a developers I've seen like they do want to give you some result. It's just like the communication is not happening, and that's a frustrating point. So I think that's so whole thing is like your retros have to be more creative and more you should be able to follow up on those retrospects too and make it more creative, and that will help a lot in improvement.
Yeah. I'll give you a practical suggestion. an RT should have a lot of coffees per day. And again, I mean, if you're working together, right? And each
Right.
coffee should be with a different person. So that gives you a lot of insights around what each one thinks about and what each one's viewpoints are. And then you can make your decisions. You can concentrate on the right directions.
That's
Uh,
so nice.
on aligning, if I can participate, on aligning some many teams together, whether internally or externally, especially if you have external vendors.
Yeah.
Now, along with the PIs that you have in the RTEs, maybe we can align organizationally with the key results or outcomes that
Yeah.
we are planning on the lean portfolio management,
Yeah.
where we can align together at different teams.
Yeah.
But again, we have some problems toward this. What's the capacity of each team, for example? What are the priorities of each team of delivering? What about, for example, either the capacity and capability of each area that we have within each team, for example, like testers, for example, like user experience, for example, and so on. So
Sure.
these areas, maybe as RTE, I should, as RTE, I should align everyone together with the key results, with the capacity that they have, with the capabilities that they have. And then, because sometimes they are conflicting with the RTE, not because they don't want to do the work, but either they have different priorities, or they don't have enough capacity or capability.
Sure.
What's your input on this?
So one area that you could look at is the objectives that you write in the PI planning itself, right? So have that clearly articulated. And typically we suggest to have a SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound, right? Anything that the team commits, teams should not commit to a story or a feature. Rather, they should commit to an objective. Okay, this is what I want to do. That could be about, we will implement a search feature where users have this kind of an experience, and this is the speed with which they can take the search, and this is the revenue impact for my organization. So then when it becomes very clear, all your conversation should revolve around that objective. I mean, it is not about this person doesn't have a capacity or this person doesn't have a capacity. Rather, it's about you have committed to this objective. It's up to you to make it happen, right? So talk about the objectives always. And at the team level, maybe your sprint goals. That becomes, I mean, that should become your go-to place.
Thank you.
All right, guys, there's some good discussion. If anyone has any other questions, please do ask away. This is what Ashwini and myself, to some extent, I mean, Ashwini is higher up the chain than me, so I use these opportunities to learn from him.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions? No? All right, super, Ashwini. So like we said, we've got the RTE class coming up 16th to 18th November, 7th to 9th December. This is a 3-day workshop. It is more intensive. If you've just been exposed to Leading Safe or something like that, very, very foundational, great courses, but they don't teach you the how. They're really about teaching you the what's. And this is what these more advanced courses are about. So you build upon the Scrum knowledge and the knowledge that you've built from understanding the framework. But this is really where we start seeing the application of all of the principles coming to life and really trying to dive deep into that role. So it's 3 great days of training. We also have another advanced course coming up for DevOps, which I think, Ashwini, in a couple of days, we've got another webinar with yourself. So that's all on the Meetup group. If anybody needs to reach out to us, where we are at Learning Initiative. We've got teams in the UK, we've got teams in UAE, we've got teams in Singapore, and through the partnership with Cyberbahn, we're now extended out to the US and to India as well. So we're here to help, guys. And these opportunities and these webinars, one element is, yes, we do want to see people on our courses, but the other element, there's no push. The idea is, what can we learn? What do we need to know? Because what we don't know isn't going to allow us to make the right decisions. Half the time, myself, Ashwini, Patrick, and the guys, we're trying to explain to people, this isn't a should I do a Scrum or a PMP. This isn't a should I do an RTE and a Scaled Agile versus less. This is about the time to soak up all the knowledge you can possibly get, because that time is coming. The digital future's here. Yes, we've got a pandemic around us, but this is the drive, you know, to ensure that your success and your organization's success is there. And organizations aren't looking for resources, like we said. They're looking for people that can think, that have a problem-solving culture, that understand how to coordinate. They have strategic thinking, they have critical thinking, they have tactical thinking, they know how to work with people. You know, they understand agility, they understand the waterfalling, the old ways. So it is about building knowledge and soak up as much as you can get right now, because you never know when it's going to come handy.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, Ashwini, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time once again. And thank you to everybody who joined. And there will be a link for the recording, which will be shared in the next couple of days.
Shahid, you haven't mentioned about like the course fees and stuff like that, right? If you
No,
can
we haven't. But look, if you're interested, reach out to us, because we are running promotions. And like I said, people that join our events like this, we do offer them a little bit extra discount, because we appreciate you taking the time out, you know, to come and listen. What I'll do very quickly, guys, just in the chat, I'm just going to drop my email address.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to talk about some of the courses, or just have a general discussion around where your career's at and what you're thinking, drop me a line. We'll reach out.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Any other question?
That's it. Thank you, guys. It was wonderful. Thank you, Ashwini.
Thank you.
It was
Thank you. I enjoyed
great.
too. Have a good evening. And
Thank you.
Good evening,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.